Welcome everyone to this week's video. Today we are on Fish Friday number 238, a Valentine's Day special. Now I know what you are thinking, Ping. It is not Valentine's Day. Well, that is because unfortunately I have been so incredibly busy that I did what I never thought would happen, and I unfortunately missed 2 Fish Fridays in a row. But I will be getting you some extra videos coming up over the next couple of weeks. And I still wanted to do this fish, planned on doing this fish for Valentine's Day. So essentially you can think of this being like delayed. Maybe this was a bad husband, forgot Valentine's Day and got it too late. But regardless, today's fish that we're going to be talking about for a late Valentine's Day special is bam, the Cupid Cichlid. Now the Cupid Cichlid, or scientific name Biotodoma cupido, again that's Biotodoma cupido, it is part of the family Cichlidae, which is the family of cichlids. Now we've talked about cichlids in the past, and for good reason. They're a very large group of fish, and they're a very interesting group of fish. Another name for this fish is, it is also known as the green-streaked earth eater. Now, the green-streaked earth eater, it originally had the scientific name Geophagus, I believe, and then got moved over to Biotodoma. Now, Geophagus is kind of known, that genus is known to essentially be very, very good at terrestrial formations, meaning they eat the dirt basically and they spit it out, and that's how they feed. But we'll talk about that a little more. But this fish is not necessarily the same as that. But the Cupid Cichlid is native to Bolivia, Brazil, Colombia, Peru. Kind of fitting considering, you know, those are countries known for romance and passion and things like that. Sorry, I'm going to lean into this Valentine's Day thing. You know, very, very beautiful portions of the country. Native to the Amazon and Essequibo basins. And they're very variable in habitat. This is not a fish that's in trouble. This is a fairly well-known fish. And it's actually very popular in the aquarium trade as well. And it does have type localities even. And when you start seeing type localities in the aquarium trade, you know that that fish usually is doing okay. And this fish is definitely not in any trouble whatsoever, other than just your general fisheries troubling. But so this is native to the Amazon and Essequibo basins, very variable in habitat. They seem to be found where there's much more seasonal variability, water depths, turbidity, and flooding. So like the areas they vary in depth. It'll go from clear to very muddy waters, has temporary flooding zones and things like that. Which, and I can't remember the exact term, but there is actually life histories that are based around they need periods of high variability. You can honestly think of one like gar species, North American gar species. Gar species depend on flooding to happen for them to spawn. It's actually a trigger, and it might have something to do with this fish as well. But let's go on. Cupid Cichlid. It is a smaller fish, around 10 centimeters, which is 4 inches. I said smaller fish, but in terms of cichlids, that's kind of more your average size. I mean, obviously you got things like the Mozambique, the Nile tilapias, and things like that. Those things can get absolutely monstrous. But when people think of cichlids, especially in the aquarium trade, they're usually thinking of like the apistogrammas and stuff like that, or your African cichlids, which I've most seen this fish in aquariums with African cichlids completely unbeknownst to them that it's actually a South American cichlid. So yeah, around 4 inches, 10 centimeters, kind of your traditional cichlid body shape, the slightly pointed head, elongated dorsal fin, spiny in the first dorsal fin, kind of a looped, rounded secondary dorsal fin that's soft. You can see here a fairly rounded anal fin, large pectoral fins. Your pelvic fins will get fair coloration. You can see here that orange and white. But something interesting, it's very hard to see on these specimens, but there are plenty of them that actually have a silvery body with a slight greenish hue with these vertical black stripes throughout the whole body. And you can kind of see, if you look closely, you can say, oh, there's like a bar here and a gap, and then there's another gap, then there's a bar here. Now, it always has this little, I like to call it an offset vertical bar. So it has this one coming through the top of the head, then it's like it broke, and now it's going through the eye. That seems to be something that's pretty indicative of the Cupid cichlid. It's always been prevalent on every Cupid cichlid I've seen. And then of course you have the dark ocelli right here, which is the eye spot towards the back of the body. Large eyes, these green streaks, which is why it actually got its other name, the green streaked earth eater here. Fairly indicative. There is some research and some people out there that say based on these green streaks you can tell if it's a male or female. I don't believe that, but it's there. It does have this more terminal mouth, which is kind of important for its feeding strategy. But you know, it's because some cichlids are a little more subterminal. And it has a relatively normal breeding behavior. Males will become quite a bit more colorful. They'll perform the courtship dance that's very common among most cichlids. And then they select a flat surface for their eggs. And then like most cichlids, they actually exhibit paternal care. Both males and females do. They're actually pretty territorial when it comes to their young. But something interesting to note, I've had my most success breeding cichlids, either whether it be, you know, angelfish or apicigrammas. Apicigrammas are kind of weird. They kind of like spawning on a flat surface in caves. You know, so, but they still like that flat surface. What a lot of people do is they'll actually get like a ceramic or a clay floor tile and break it, and they'll lean that up against the glass, and they'll use the flat surface of the tile to lay their eggs. Just a little interesting sort of fish husbandry trick. But for the interesting fact that we're going to end the video on, befitting the name and why it actually got its why it's really known as a Cupid cichlid. Obviously, Biotodoma cupido, it was originally chosen for the Cupid, but it actually is a pretty loving and peaceful species. As many of you may know, especially if you keep cichlids, cichlids can be very territorial, very, very, very mean fish that constantly pick on other fish. That's why African cichlid tanks are very much African cichlids and almost nothing else. But the Cupid cichlid actually does very, very well in a community tank, as long as it's not with other, you know, aggressive species, and it will actually do very well with multiple Cupid cichlids. Not saying overload with Cupid cichlids, but most of the time with cichlids, you're like 1 male, 2 females, and that's like max you want to do, unless you're going with like a straight African cichlid tank. But like the apicigrammas, I always used to recommend 1 male, 2 females. Cupid cichlids just seem to be like, you know, we'll all get along. They don't necessarily school, but they don't, you know, necessarily avoid other Cupid cichlids. Smaller Cupid cichlids might get picked on a little bit, but not necessarily horrendous. So befitting the name and befitting the Valentine's Day special, which is very late again, I apologize, but it's a very loving and peaceful species. They mainly just need the softer substrate. This fish is a benthophagous fish, mainly, meaning that how they get their food is they are basically rooting around in the dirt, in the soil, in the silt, in the sand, and finding little polychaete worms, little crustaceans, little insects, organic debris, and they're basically sucking all of it in, and they're shoving the actual, rocks and cobble and little bits of sand out through their gills, and just keeping essentially all that organic material in their mouth, which obviously they're going to swallow some of that. So this is a fish that if you do have it in a heavily graveled aquarium, which is always, don't use gravel as an aquarium base unless you really know what you're doing. When this fish has that softer sand, silt, extremely fine gravel substrate, man, this fish is an amazing. It really doesn't there. When they start starving, that's when they start getting antsy and they'll start nipping at other fish. But as long as you have that substrate, man, it befits its name, and it is a very, very loving fish. It will actually attach to its owners as well, especially if it's only one person feeding them. Yeah, just one of the better with the name and their temperament. I almost couldn't think of a better fish for a Valentine's Day special. But thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. Sorry again that this is so late. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you do. I'd really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. Thank you guys so much. Again, sorry this definitely wasn't my plan, but any video I would have put out either on Valentine's Day or yesterday would have just not been the video that you are deserving. So thank you guys so much again. Hope you enjoyed this late Valentine's Day special. Please take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and